The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the distant hum of cars and the occasional bark of a stray dog. The city lights shimmered faintly in the distance, blurred by the fog that clung to the old bridge like a veil. The air was cold, sharp enough to bite at the skin, but Daniel barely noticed. His mind was on the bills he couldn't pay, the groceries he couldn't afford, and the shoes his daughter, Emily, had outgrown months ago but still wore without complaint. Daniel was a single dad, though he never liked to define himself that way. He preferred to think of himself as just dad, a mechanic who worked long hours, a man trying his best to fill two roles for the little girl who depended on him. Emily, only 6 years old, was asleep in the backseat of his old, rattling car, her tiny hands gripping her teddy bear so tightly that its fur was nearly rubbed off. It was late, later than he liked driving her home. But his shift at the workshop had run long, and the owner had asked him to stay behind to finish a job. Daniel didn't have the luxury of saying no. He needed every dollar he could get, even if it meant Emily fell asleep on a bench waiting for him. As he drove across the bridge, his weary eyes scanned the road, almost mechanically. But something unusual tugged at his attention. A figure, still, silent, stood dangerously close to the edge of the railing. At first, he thought it was just a passerby, maybe someone looking out over the river. But the longer he looked, the clearer it became. This wasn't a peaceful pause. This was a battle between life and death. His foot slammed on the brake, the car screeching to a halt. Emily stirred in the back, mumbling sleepily, but Daniel's focus was elsewhere. His heart raced. For a split second, fear rooted him to his seat, fear that he was seeing something he wasn't ready to face. But then, he saw her hands. White-knuckled, clutching the cold railing. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs, her head bowed forward as though the weight of the world pressed down on her. Daniel's breath caught. He opened the car door so quickly it swung back against him, then he ran. His boots pounded against the concrete, echoing in the night air. "Don't jump," he shouted, his voice desperate, raw. The girl startled, her whole body jerking as though she'd been ripped from her thoughts. She turned slightly, and Daniel caught a glimpse of her face under the flickering yellow of the streetlight. She was young, far too young to be standing there. Maybe 19, maybe 20 at most. Her eyes were red and swollen, her cheeks streaked with tears that glistened in the dim light. Her hair was messy, her clothes wrinkled, as though she hadn't cared enough to put herself together. "Go away," she whispered hoarsely, her voice breaking. "Please, just leave me." Daniel stopped a few feet away, holding his hands up carefully, like he was approaching a wounded animal that might bolt at any second. His chest heaved, his heart pounding so hard he could barely breathe. "I can't do that," he said softly. "I can't just leave you here." Her grip on the railing tightened. "You don't even know me," she snapped through her tears. "You don't know what I've been through. No one cares. No one." Daniel swallowed hard, his throat tight. In that moment, he saw a reflection of himself, not now, but years ago, when Emily's mother walked out, leaving him with a baby in his arms and nothing else. He remembered sitting in the dark, wondering if he had what it took to survive, if maybe it would have been better to just give up. But then he'd heard Emily's soft cry from the crib, and everything changed. "You're right," Daniel said gently, taking a cautious step forward. "I don't know your story. But I know the feeling of being at the edge, of thinking no one cares. I've been there." Her eyes flicked to his, uncertain, filled with pain and disbelief. "And what? You think saying some nice words is going to fix everything? You don't know what I've lost." Daniel shook his head slowly. "No, words won't fix it. But, listen, I have a little girl asleep in my car right now. She's all I've got in this world. And there were nights when I wanted to give up. Nights when I thought I wasn't enough for her. But if I had given in to that feeling, she would have lost everything. She needs me, even when I don't feel like I matter." Maybe you can't see it right now, but someone needs you too. Her lips trembled, her whole body quivering. She turned back toward the dark water below, her tears falling faster. No one needs me, she whispered. I have no one. Nothing. Daniel's chest ached. He took another step, slowly, carefully. Then let me need you, he said. His voice cracked, but he didn't care. I need you to step down. I need you to stay alive tonight, just tonight. Not forever, just tonight. Because if you don't, I'll carry the weight of this moment for the rest of my life, wondering why I couldn't save you. Her breath hitched. For a heartbeat, she didn't move. Daniel could see her fingers twitching, her grip faltering, her resolve battling against his words. Please, Daniel whispered, his eyes burning. Just take my hand. For a long, endless second, nothing happened. Then, with a broken sob that seemed to tear from her very soul, the girl loosened her grip. Her knees buckled, and Daniel lunged forward, wrapping his arms around her just as she collapsed. She fell into him, trembling violently, gasping for air between sobs. Daniel held her tightly, like he would hold Emily after a nightmare. He didn't know her name, her story, or what brought her to that bridge, but none of it mattered right now. All that mattered was that she was still here. You're safe, he murmured, his voice shaking. You're safe now. I've got you. The girl clung to him as though she was drowning, burying her face against his chest. Daniel rocked her gently, his eyes lifting to the sky. He had no idea why fate had led him to that bridge at that exact moment, but he silently thanked God that it had. What Daniel didn't know, what he couldn't possibly imagine, was that the girl he had just pulled from the edge of death wasn't just a stranger. Her presence in his life would unravel secrets, test his strength, and ultimately change everything he thought he knew about love, family, and fate. And this was only the beginning. Daniel drove slowly, hands tight on the steering wheel, his mind racing as he glanced at the girl sitting quietly in the passenger seat. She hadn't said much after he pulled her away from the bridge. Her eyes were still red, her body trembling now and then as if her heart hadn't yet caught up with the fact that she was still alive. Emily, from the back seat, peeked over her teddy bear, her little voice breaking the silence. Daddy, is she okay? Daniel forced a small smile through the heaviness pressing on his chest. She will be, sweetheart. She just had a really hard night. The girl gave a shaky sigh, whispering, You didn't have to stop, you didn't have to save me. Daniel glanced at her, his voice firm but kind. Yes, I did. No one deserves to be left alone in a moment like that. They pulled into a small all-night cafe near the outskirts of the city. It wasn't fancy, just a warm place with the smell of fresh coffee and old wooden booths. Daniel bought her a hot chocolate and slid it gently in front of her. She wrapped her hands around the mug, as if clinging to its warmth like an anchor. Emily, always braver than her years, scooted onto the seat next to the girl. Don't cry, she said softly, offering her teddy bear. He helps me when I'm sad. You can borrow him. The girl's lips trembled as tears spilled freely again. She took the teddy bear in shaking hands, hugging it to her chest. Thank you, she whispered, her voice breaking. I don't even remember the last time someone was kind to me. For the next hour, Daniel mostly listened. Her name, she said, was Anna. She told him about aging out of foster care with nowhere to go, how she bounced between odd jobs and couches until she had nothing left. She talked about nights of hunger, days of rejection, and the loneliness that made her believe her existence didn't matter. Daniel felt every word. He knew pain, though of a different kind. The day Emily's mother walked out, he thought his life had ended too. But then Emily had cried for him, reached for him, needed him, and that need gave him purpose. Listening to Anna, he realized she had never had someone to need her. In the following days, Daniel kept checking on her. He dropped food at the shelter where she stayed, sometimes bringing Emily along. Each time, Emily greeted her with the same innocent joy, dragging her into games, slipping her little drawings with messages like, "Be happy, Anna." Slowly, walls began to crumble. Anna started showing up at the garage where Daniel worked, bringing lunch or offering to sweep the floor just to keep busy. She was quiet, but Daniel noticed how Emily lit up around her, how laughter came easier when she was there. One evening, as the three of them walked through the park, Emily tugged at Daniel's sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered, but loudly enough for Anna to hear. "Can Anna stay with us forever? She doesn't have a family. But we can be her family, right?" Daniel froze, his eyes locking with Anna's. She looked startled, then overwhelmed, her lips parting in shock. For a long moment, silence hung between them. Finally, Anna knelt in front of Emily, her voice trembling. You'd want me?" she asked softly. Emily nodded firmly, holding Anna's hand. "Families don't let people be lonely. You need us." Tears slipped down Anna's cheeks, but this time they weren't only from pain, they carried something new. Hope. From then on, Anna became part of their little world. She started staying at their small apartment, helping Emily with homework, cooking simple dinners when Daniel came home exhausted, and reading bedtime stories when Daniel's eyes were too tired to focus on the words. Daniel noticed changes in her. She began smiling more, laughing softly at Emily's silly jokes. She no longer looked like a girl standing on the edge of a bridge, she looked like someone slowly finding her place. Still, Daniel sensed there was something she wasn't telling him. Sometimes, late at night, he'd catch her staring out the window, a storm of emotions flickering across her face. He didn't push. He knew wounds healed in their own time. It was months later, on a quiet evening, that the truth finally spilled out. Daniel had just tucked Emily into bed, kissing her forehead as she clutched her teddy bear. When he stepped into the living room, he found Anna standing by the door, her hands trembling. "There's something you don't know about me," she began, her voice soft, almost fearful. "And you deserve to know." Daniel frowned, moving closer. "Anna, whatever it is, it doesn't change what you mean to us." She shook her head, tears brimming. "My name isn't really Anna. It's Annabelle, Annabelle Carter." The name hit him like a stone in the chest. Carter. The Carters were practically royalty in the city. Her father, Richard Carter, was one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country. His empire touched every industry. Everyone knew his name. Annabelle's voice cracked. "I ran away from that life. My father's empire meant more to him than I ever did. I was just a piece of his legacy, a tool. I felt invisible in a mansion full of people. I thought no one would notice if I disappeared. And when I left, no one came looking." Daniel stood frozen, trying to process the revelation. The girl he'd pulled from the edge that night hadn't just been a broken stranger, she was the daughter of one of the most powerful men in the city. "I didn't tell you because," she choked back a sob. "Because I didn't want you to see me as her. As the heiress who walked away. I wanted you to see me as me. And you did. You and Emily, you gave me a home when I had nothing. You gave me love without even knowing who I was." Daniel's heart swelled painfully. He stepped forward, gently cupping her face. "Annabelle, I don't care about your last name. I don't care about your father's empire. What matters is the girl I pulled from that bridge, the girl who found the courage to keep living, the girl who became family to my daughter." Her tears fell freely as she leaned into his touch. "Then let me stay," she whispered. "Not because of who I was, but because of who I'm becoming, with you." Daniel smiled, his own eyes glistening. "Then stay. Stay with us. Not as a Carter, but as Annabelle, the woman who gave my little girl a sister, and maybe, gave me something I never thought I'd find again." Annabelle let out a shaky laugh through her tears. For the first time in years, she felt like she truly belonged. That night, in the warmth of a small, struggling family, Annabelle Carter, once a lost soul on the edge of a bridge, found the home, love, and purpose she had been searching for her entire life. And Daniel realized that sometimes, fate didn't just save a life, it wove two broken worlds together to create something whole.